This is the Miami International Boat Show, without a doubt the mother of them all. There's a boat here to fit the personal needs of almost every one of these people. Some boaters are inspired by naked horsepower and speed. Others want a luxury condo that sits in its slip and never leaves. Some won't settle for less than a floating five-star hotel, complete with baccarat crystal and French linen sheets. Others are merely interested in a very expensive plaything. This man has a totally different vision. He builds boats that are capable of something that has rarely been done. Up to now, ocean crossings for the average person have been limited to cruise ships like this one. It's great fun, but it's almost as if they'd never left Las Vegas. This is the bridge of this floating city. The watch officer is curious about this radar picture. His ship is 1,000 miles from the closest land or from any known fishing grounds. Yet there appears to be a fleet of small boats out there. What we're looking at is something that has never happened before, but is happening now because of the passionate determination of a group of ordinary people doing something that is anything but ordinary. This is not the Miami Boat Show. We're 30 miles north in Fort Lauderdale, and these boats are getting ready to cross an ocean. Mostly captained by people who could be your neighbor, your dentist, your veterinarian, your stockbroker, or maybe, if the event is done again, yourself. The date is May 9, 2004, and we're on the docks of the Bahia Mar Marina at the Radisson Hotel in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This marina is best known for being the home of the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. This is Jim Leishman, one of the two men who changed these people's lives. And this is Dan Streets, the founder and president of Pacific Asian Enterprises, the builders of the highly respected line of Nordhavn trawlers. Jim is co-founder and vice president. Both of these men were instrumental in developing a line of production boats that have the ability to cross oceans on their own bottoms. The sizes of the boats in this rally vary between 40 and 62 feet, with the exception of a 92-foot yacht, which has a professional captain and crew. In 8 days, these people will depart on an adventure of a lifetime.
I want to welcome you all who are about to make history as participants in the Nordhavn Atlantic Rally. There's an awful lot of people to thank for putting this adventure together, and I'd like to personally thank my partner, Dan Streech, the president of Pacific Asian and Nordhavn. Dan is the greatest problem solver I've ever met in my life, and he's going to be here until we depart, and of course going off with us on the first leg, so you can count on Dan to help with anything that you need. I'm certainly counting on him. And Dan?
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I understand there are no problems right now, so I have nothing to do.
The other members of the rally board are retired Navy Captain Mike Martis, retired Navy Commander Milt Baker, and powerboat circumnavigator Bruce Kessler.
And so please.
Their vision is to lead a small fleet of motorboats called trawlers across the Atlantic. These trawlers are not like other recreational cruisers. They're built like little ships. What they are about to attempt has been done by sailboats, but very rarely by motorboats because of insufficient fuel capacity. The boats in our fleet can carry all they need to make this almost 4,000-mile journey. All participants are required to have completed at least one 600-mile offshore passage non-stop. The smaller boats, 40 to 50 feet, have less fuel capacity than the larger ones and must travel at slower speeds in order to get the maximum mileage per gallon. This is Bill and Arlene Smith, owners and operators of Autumn Wind, a 62-foot Nordhavn, which is one of the 3 escort vessels in the fleet. With their former 58-foot trawler, they had crossed every major ocean by 1995. Here are Ellen and Bill Bain. He is a retired business consultant working in electronics, software, and wireless communications, and Ellen, a former assistant district attorney in Boston. Their boating experience may be less than some of the other participants, but they make up for it in enthusiasm. Ellen, though, has some anxieties about following her husband's dream. Scott and Mary Flanders on Egret have fished and cruised all over Florida. They acquired their 46-foot Nordhavn so they could do some cruising to distant ports. After Scott retired from his boat building business, they sold all that wouldn't fit on board, took off, and never looked back. We have here the better half of John and Sue Spencer. John is now off doing what boaters do, working on his boat and leaving the meeting to Sue. Most of their boating has been on lakes, but they've decided to go cruise the world and own the smallest boat in the fleet. David Stone, a real estate developer, and his fiancée Sandra Howarth have the largest vessel in the fleet, 92-foot crosser with a professional captain and crew, one of the 3 boats in the fleet not built by Nordhavn. They wanted to join the rally for the camaraderie.
Well, I guess we'll conclude this meeting then. I'm available anytime on board Atlantic Escort. Please come by, and any questions you have, we'll be happy to sit and talk with you. Thank you.
These people will have a lot of work to do before the fleet departs. There will be refrigerators and freezers to fill, spare parts to inventory and replenish, electronics to install or check out, and items to stow and secure for a long ocean voyage. And one of the most critical tasks is to make sure the cushion covers are correctly stuffed. And if there's any time left over, there will be many seminars.
What are you going to do if the captain is the victim?
Ship's medicine, conducted by fleet physician Dr. Kevin
Have
Ware.
a heart attack.
Books and navigation of European waters, conducted by Jay Curzine and Jan Cosby from Blue Water Books and Charts of Fort Lauderdale. Pam Wall from West Marine raised her children while circumnavigating with her husband on a sailboat. She's extremely well qualified to answer any questions about going to sea and is a great help to those who have concerns or anxieties. Ellen needs to talk to Pam Wall. Her anxiety is rapidly mounting. In case you've forgotten how to keep your generator in good health, this is the man to talk to. His name is Bob Center, and his specialty is fixing and maintaining anything mechanical on a boat. As you can see, this is nothing like packing up a motorhome for a leisurely drive from LA to Miami. The sea is far more perilous and full of surprises than the open road, so the key to the safety of life in an undertaking like this one is preparation, preparation, preparation. And at the end of the day, make no mistake about it, more preparation. We're looking at the heart of this 57-foot trawler, which is the #1 escort vessel, the fleet leader. This single piece of machinery is going to take this boat almost 4,000 miles across the Atlantic. Even though all captains hold the ultimate responsibility for their vessel's preparedness, they will all be looking to this one man, Jim Leishman, for his leadership and expertise. We finally arrived at the departure date, and while Mike Martis is conducting the final captain's briefing, Jim is making a very important phone call to our weather expert, retired Navy Captain Walt Hack. He has given Jim his most recent analysis of the weather to be expected for the first leg of the trip, 6 days from Fort Lauderdale to Bermuda.
Okay, we'll get started, and let me introduce Jim to kick us off.
Well, this is it, the big day, and you rarely see Walt enthusiastic about the weather, excited, but he really was about as excited as Walt could get about how good this weather appears to be.
The decision is made. It's time to go, and the next time they all gather will be in Bermuda. The slower vessels are departing today, and the larger, faster vessels will start tomorrow. This is done so that the whole fleet can arrive at the next destination on the same day.
Sunday, May 16th, in the afternoon, we're headed out on the adventure. We're in the slow group. It's going to take a while, but I think it's going to be good. A little worried, a little nervous about it, but mainly excited.
The weather was lumpy, but you'd never know it looking at the crew of Satchmo. Normally, you wouldn't find many boats out on a day like this, but the crew of Envoy thought it was just fine. And if you think they were excited about getting started, look at the crew of Egret. I wonder if they'll be acting like this tomorrow morning. This is the crew of Stargazer. Like the rest of the fleet, they were just happy to be underway. And this young lady probably doesn't realize that she can't get off this boat for 6 days. But one of the escort vessels, Autumn Wind, have no idea what was about to happen moments later. A fuel leak on the flow scan system was discovered by crew member Eric Leishman.
We got an oil leak down here. We're going to have to slow down.
Fortunately, Eric was able to bypass the leak quickly and easily in just a matter of minutes. This was caused by the wrong valve being closed. Autumn Wind was back online, ready to resume its duties as an escort vessel. With Fort Lauderdale fading away behind them, they were off on the adventure of a lifetime. And a little spray, a few bumps in the road, and maybe more than a little mal de mer could not dampen their spirits as they headed north riding the Gulf Stream into the first night of this history-making voyage. The fleet is not taking the most direct course to Bermuda. They're going further north to get a boost from the Gulf Stream and a more comfortable ride. It's 6:30 on the morning of the 17th, and the small boat fleet has had a bumpy night in moderate seas as they continue north up the Gulf Stream with no problems reported so far. When the 46-foot trawler in the foreground, Egret, owned by Scott and Mary Flanders, loses its stabilizers. Scott and Cecil go to work on the port stabilizer while Dean tries to find a more comfortable course.
Okay, Cecil, move the light. I can't really see. Got it. Great, thanks. All right. Okay. It's really hard to get this because the oil pressure's not letting me get this plug in.
This is Satchmo. As you can see, the crew is not quite as exuberant as we last saw them. Ellen has given up her berth for the lowest spot on the boat. Steve has found the next lowest and furthest aft, with Calvin alongside of him using a dinette cushion as a mattress. Meanwhile, aboard Atlantic Escort, the rally command vessel, the captain and fleet commander moonlights as the short-order breakfast chef.
So how's the trip been going so far? Nobody broke down last night. No problems they've had. They've been fixing them on their own. You kind of hear the confidence level coming up.
It's 7:45 and Jim is now at the helm, getting ready for his 8 a.m. roll call. He's already heard about Egret's stabilizer problems.
Egret, Atlantic Escort, 72, Clint.
Good morning, Jeff.
Yeah, how you guys doing? I understand you have a fin problem.
So, snapped. So I bypassed the lines. We got that one finally pinned. The other one's online, and we're running at 1800. We're about 6 miles behind the last boat, so I suspect in 5-6 hours we'll be back in the pack.
Yeah, roger that. Was that, you have a dual ram system on that boat?
No, it's a single ram, 201 Naiad.
Let me guess, it was the starboard fin, right?
You got it.
As you can see, Jim has had a lot of experience with these kinds of problems.
Oh, that's good. That's easy to fix. Well, I'm glad you had that flushing kit to bypass that.
Jim's primary responsibility is keeping all 18 boats at 100%.
Yeah, okay, well, good. That's that's basically an hour fix when we get to Bermuda if we get the ram in there, which we will. So you should be fine on that one fin.
Good. Yeah, anything you can do to expedite that ram would be a big help for us.
Well, I guarantee you there'll be a ram there. All right, Scott, very good. Autumn Wind's going to start the roll call here momentarily, so let's go back to 16.
Autumn Wind, this is Satchmo. Autumn Wind, Autumn 2 standing by.
All the boats gave their position reports and indicated if they were having any problems.
Envoy, Atlantic Escort.
Envoy's position is 28, 24.6, 79, 34.0. Everything is fine with the exception that we lost our hydraulic stabilization. We've got babes in the water until we can make a repair.
Yeah, Envoy, we listened to you about your stabilizer leak, and we're sitting here thinking about it. Could be a pipe junction, could be at either actuator, it might be at the fluid conditioner. Have you gotten in there and given it a good look?
The fleet has only been underway for 16 hours, with 125 hours to go before they arrive in Bermuda. We're back in Fort Lauderdale and getting ready to start the captain's briefing for the second fleet, where they'll find out if they're going to depart on schedule and what kind of sea conditions to expect.
If not, then let me introduce Dan Streech, and Dan will take us through the mid part.
Well, I've talked to Jim twice, actually 3 times.
Jim had informed Dan that weather conditions were improving and gave him an update on all mechanicals, which were under control. They had the go-ahead to depart on schedule. This is Sans Souci, a 62-foot escort vessel that is leading the second fleet into the Gulf Stream. Sea conditions appear to be no different than yesterday, but undoubtedly it'll be a better ride for these boats because of their longer water lines and heavier displacement. As you can see, the crew on Goleen thinks the ride is just fine. The Seafox crew is from Bellingham, Washington, and they're just happy to see the sun's out. And of course, Dan Streech, the leader of this happy group on Sans Souci, That's Captain Rip Knott and Chris Fittipaldi taking our picture. Bon voyage! If everything goes according to plan, this faster fleet will overtake the first fleet in 5.5 days, and on Saturday morning they will join as one fleet, arriving at the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club in Hamilton just in time for lunch. We're back on board Atlantic Escort, approximately 206 miles ahead of the faster fleet. Off our port side is 40-foot Uno Mas, the smallest and slowest boat on this journey. But she should have no worries because the other escort vessel, 62-foot Autumn Wind, is also well within hailing distance, just on her other side. This is Envoy. Remember earlier when Jim spoke to them on the VHF about their stabilizer leak? At this point, Wayne hasn't been able to find the leak, so he still has his paravanes deployed to dampen the roll in these seas. Nice backup system. This has made it comfortable enough for the crew to have sandwiches in the wheelhouse, while the crew of Atlantic Escort has a sit-down dinner before roll call starts.
Good evening, this is World Odyssey. We are at 2952.5 north, 75 degrees.
There were no problems that evening on roll call for either group, but when dawn breaks, Jim's fleet will be entering the Bermuda Triangle. And what will this day bring? Better weather and fresh fish for dinner.
Here we go. Whoa, he's got some right left there. Yeah, some line there.
Hand me one of those gloves.
Here, you want a glove?
Yeah, I'm gonna grab the line with it.
A mahi-mahi, sometimes called a dolphin fish or dorado. Definitely one of the best eating fish in the ocean.
Yeah!
A nice one. And as you can see, the fleet was enjoying better weather. The second fleet was also experiencing better and better conditions, with only one reported problem from Sea Fox, who said he was hearing expensive crunching noises from his starboard stabilizer.
The seas have settled down, and we're in still a little bit bumpy, but a pretty nice motion.
But not to worry, the weather was improving, and he said he didn't really need them anyway. He was assured by his fleet captain, Dan Streech, on Sans Souci, that there was already someone on the way to Bermuda who would deal with any stabilizer problem.
No problems on any of the boats. A little bit of seasickness on Sea Fox, but a pretty nice motion, and we're doing great.
Walt Hack's weather prediction was coming true. The weather was just getting better and better. Jim never would have believed that the dreaded Bermuda Triangle was going to turn into Nordhavn Atlantic Rally's playground.
You silly people!
Don't worry about hitting the bottom. It's over a mile deep.
In the middle of the Atlantic.
Not to be outdone, the crew of Atlantic Escort goes water skiing right in the Bermuda Triangle.
Those kids sure are having the time of their lives out here.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Wish I was 40 years younger.
Here we are aboard Stargazer, and this beautiful flat ocean has encouraged Kevin to prepare one of his specialties, beef Wellington.
Oh my!
That evening, I don't think anyone had a problem sleeping soundly. The water surface was like glass. No wind at all. On Satchmo, Ellen didn't want her crew to feel deprived after hearing about the sumptuous meal that Kevin on Stargazer had served the night before, so she whipped up a little something special for their breakfast.
It's Martha's turn.
It's Martha.
I mean, I feel
Martha
like
is making the, she's on furlough.
it's a Ritz-Carlton breakfast.
It's a good thing.
That's right.
The curse of the Bermuda Triangle has struck Kay Linden. No, it wasn't their hot tub that quit or Linda's exercise. It was much worse than that. Their espresso machine broke down. No lattes for breakfast today. This is one of the few places in the world where there's no Starbucks, but even so, help is on the way. Their escort vessel, Sans Souci, also has an espresso machine, and of course they deliver.
Special delivery.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful.
How about that for a full-service operation? And still in the full-service mode, Atlantic Escort delivered Dr. Kevin Ware to Envoy for his first house call. The doctor examined Captain Wayne Davis and diagnosed a strained ligament. He said he'd check him out again in Bermuda, but was sure he'd be better in no time. Later in Fleet 1, 4 across has a problem with their water maker and has discovered that they are low on water. Jim Leishman, the fleet leader, decides that with these flat water conditions, this is a good time to make a transfer. This is also the way they have planned to transfer fuel or give someone a tow if it should ever become necessary. As Jim continues to direct the operation, back in the faster fleet, Dan, their leader, is writing an email to the Nordhavn headquarters in Dana Point, telling the staff about what a tough job it is leading his fleet across the Atlantic.
And this morning was an especially delicious omelet with ham, bacon, and cheese. Could someone check for me and see if a cholesterol reading of 756 is okay? Contented, Dan.
And this is how Ellen Bain feels about the day.
Look at this. This is just one of those rare, perfect days. Just glassy sea, beautiful. I'll remember this day all my life, I think. I can't believe I ever thought of not coming on this trip. This one day, this makes the whole thing worthwhile. If I never see another day like this, the whole trip is still worthwhile. This is amazing.
Even this little jellyfish is having a great day. Happy he hasn't been eaten by the whales or run over by these guys. James, Justin, and David were loving every minute of this weather. But first it was back to the boat for a forgotten radio. Then they were off. Here are a few of the boats in the slower group, hundreds of miles from land. Think about it. What would it be like in a sailboat waiting for a breath of wind? Then it's back to Atlantic Escort, and Jim has no problem getting his guys to come home. It's dinner time. Later that evening, when Jim has an opportunity to review the video of the water transfer operation they did that afternoon, he wonders how come it looked so easy when the Navy did it. The days and nights to Bermuda passed uneventfully. The engine room checks and roll calls went on with no emergencies as the fleet approached their destination. Two fleets converged after midnight on May 21st. They were in contact with Bermuda control before daylight. Through the dawn hours, the fleet stayed comfortably off the reefed shoreline of Bermuda, and at dawn they approached the 5-fathom hole, giving them a safe entrance to the South Channel. 16 miles left to go. These folks have almost completed the first leg of their adventure, having traveled over 1,000 miles to reach the city of Hamilton and the legendary Royal Bermuda Yacht Club. This well-known club was founded in 1844 and has approximately 850 members. Their sponsorship and participation in open ocean sailboat racing is world-renowned. Now they will be hosting the first powerboat rally ever to cross the Atlantic.
Well, you got your Bermuda clothes on too. Looking good.
The fleet had truly arrived. All 18 boats were securely tied to the dock. All arrangements were made beforehand by the rally advance team leader, Milt Baker. The raising of the Nordhavn Atlantic Rally flag acknowledged the completion of the first leg of their historic trip. The rally participants were welcomed by Rear Commodore Craig McIntyre.
I thought we were making history at the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club with the largest fleet of motorized vessels that we've had in our new marina, which has been with us for about 4.5, 5 years now. But Milt informs me that in fact you're making global history being the largest transatlantic motorized fleet.
What a great party the club has put on for our group. All the crews have been looking forward to seeing the friends they made back in Fort Lauderdale when they were preparing for this trip. Time to tell sea stories and make repairs before they set off on the next leg. That's still 8 days away. For now, relax and enjoy another dark and stormy, the local cocktail du jour. Plenty of time to worry about work tomorrow. John Harris on World Out at Sea thought this was going to be a simple muffler repair. But as you can see, it wasn't as simple as he thought it was going to be. Fortunately, he had enough sidewalk superintendents and a couple of real helpers, and all was well at the end of the day. Jim Leishman is replacing a fan belt on the generator in the engine room of Atlantic Escort, while alongside he's also doing the laundry. The laundry room on Atlantic Escort is in the engine room. That way the captain can do maintenance and the laundry at the same time, thereby setting an amazing new standard of efficiency. Remember Scott Flanders on Egret and this little bit of drama that happened on the way to Bermuda? Let's let him tell us how it was resolved.
Well, NIAD has gone way above and beyond. They sent a representative who's on the boat right now from Connecticut, and with a bag of parts and tools, and they're replacing both rams. One of the rams is frozen, so we're working to get that off. After taking apart the second one to put the larger rams on, if there's no more parts required, somehow we're going to have to get that casting here in time to complete the repairs before we leave for the next leg.
The parts arrived, the problem was solved, and Scott and Egret were ready for the rest of their journey. The timing of arrival of the rally into Bermuda was perfect. Here they were on this beautiful island, having arrived the day before one of the biggest holidays in Bermuda, Bermuda Day. There was a colorful parade practically on the doorstep of the yacht club, and our people were there. The weekend afforded the club members a wonderful opportunity to visit a type of boat they rarely have a chance to see here. Small power boats with ocean crossing capability. This is curious. What are these kids doing with these wine bottles? Steve Soltisic, the first mate on Satchmo and a teacher, has this wonderful project that he's been involved with over the last 15 years. Each day underway, he tosses 12 bottles overboard, containing the latitude and longitude, the date and time of day.
Do you know what latitude and longitude is? Where you are on the Earth?
Each bottle has a special number for each child. Inside the bottle is information on how to contact Steve.
I have topside perhaps about 130 bottles to every day toss overboard about 10 bottles.
And when he receives a call that one has been found, he contacts the lucky child to let them know the latitude and longitude where he tossed their bottle overboard and where it was eventually found. So far, it's an 8% return rate. In between the important fix-it projects, everyone wanted and needed to take a break and enjoy the sights of this beautiful island. Only 21 square miles, but gorgeous vistas wherever you look, even underwater.
You're actually at
West Marine has sent their high seas motivator to Bermuda. Remember Pam Wall from Fort Lauderdale? She's here to check on some of those who seem more concerned about making the trip.
Well, it was exciting to see Bermuda, and
It certainly seems Pam won't have to worry about this group anymore. They're ready for the next leg of the crossing, and now they can really enjoy Bermuda.
Jenny, Amy, do either of you have the schedule for the open house?
Yes.
These two ladies, Jenny Stern and Amy Zara, are a very important part of the NAR staff. They are there at the end of each leg, ready to answer any question.
There should be someone from the rally staff who's actually going.
We asked the NAR rally leader, Jim Leishman, if the weather for the next leg to the Azores would be like the last leg.
I think it's a little bit more complicated. There's some little systems that are flowing around. I think Walt is trying to predict what they're going to do. We have a cold front that's supposed to pass through tonight and move off to the south or to the southeast, I believe. And then Walt is predicting that the high pressure, which is actually south of where it normally is right now, and that's the reason that the low was able to come through to Bermuda, he believes that's going to rise up into its more normal position. And we're hoping, and he suggested that maybe we could run due east rather than go the northeast course that would take us to the Azores, run due east for a few days and pick up that high as it rises back up into its normal position, possibly riding the high right into Horta.
The journey to the Azores is 1,818 nautical miles, twice as long as the first leg. They'll have twice the exposure to weather and the possibility of breakdown, and the fuel burn could be critical for some of the smaller boats.
The fast group, you can see the numbers there are pretty
Milt
much...
Baker, the NAR Rally Advanced Team Leader, is one of the few people in the room that has traveled this route in a similar powerboat, and he's helping Jim handle the briefing.
Well, our speed is going to be kind of dictated for the slow group by the smallest boat, which is Uno Mas. And while that boat has the capability to make that trip, we've got to be a little more careful with it. So the plan is to have Uno Mas set a pace of 1,400 RPM, which I believe is a fuel burn of about 2 gallons per hour. Should give us about 6 knots.
The captains and crews received the same information about the weather that Jim had given us, but Walt is recommending that the slow fleet take a more easterly course for the first few days to get a more comfortable ride before they change to a course which will take them directly to Horta.
At that speed,
This new plan will add only 35 miles to the original course.
We'll run at that speed until we determine we can go a little faster.
Tonight is the formal farewell dinner at the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club. Note the attire. Almost everyone got in the spirit of the island. Rumor has it that the California boys had to have a little help with their neckties. Royal Bermuda Yacht Club Commodore Jane Correa presented each captain and first mate with a book telling the history of the club. Now these people have become part of that history. Jim Leishman was given the honor of firing the gun to begin the call to colors. It was a beautiful evening with gourmet food and wonderful camaraderie. They toasted the Queen and the American flag, and at this moment they aren't thinking about the next 10 to 12 days at sea. As predicted, the wind was picking up, and the hope was that it would only be for a short time at the start of the trip. They hoped Walt was right because they were set to leave the next morning at 8 a.m. And they're off. The 5 feisty 46s and friends are off to the Azores, full of fuel and water and good memories of their stay in Bermuda. Maybe a little lumpy at times. And how many days did you say it was? 12 days? Oh well, I sure hope they brought along a lot of books. The captain's briefing of the faster fleet took place 32 hours after the departure of the first fleet. If they get the go-ahead, they'll leave as planned, 2 days behind. Dan Streech has gone back to Dana Point to run the business, and his replacement was Kirk White, head of commissioning at Nordhavn.
The weather is as predicted according to Walt Hack.
Kirk has been a mechanic all of his life and has worked as an engineer on factory processors in the Bering Sea, arguably the most dangerous ocean on the planet. Now they had the go-ahead and they were all ready. The Royal Bermuda Yacht Club had been a gracious host and they loved the people and the sights of Bermuda, but they were ready for the next step, the longest part of this journey across the Atlantic. Finally, we have Sans Souci with Kirk, Captain Rip Knott and his crew, always staying at the back of the pack, just in case anyone has a problem. In that position, they'll be better able to assist if necessary. On the third day out, 4 across called Atlantic Escort.
Atlantic Escort, this is 4 across.
Yes, go ahead.
Is Dr. Ware available, please?
We can get a hold of him. Hold on 1 sec.
Thanks, sir.
4 across is Summons. Is Summons here.
Well, there you go.
72.
Four across, Kevin Ware, go ahead.
Kevin, this is Doug Seaver on 4 across. One of our crew members, Charles Metcalf, you probably remember him. He's the tall redhead.
has a terrible pain in his left side, and it appears to be getting worse. It started this morning, and he's concerned enough now that he asked me to give you a call and begin some conversation. Okay. Well, let me take a handheld back to Charles. Maybe he can talk to you without getting out of that chair. Okay. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, Charles, do you mind talking about this on Channel 72?
Yeah, as long as you don't want long-winded explanations.
Okay, I understand you got some pain in the left side of your abdomen, is that right?
That's correct.
Above or below the belly button?
Just slightly below.
Do you have a fever?
Don't think so. Might be slightly elevated.
Okay, why don't you see if somebody on the boat there can roust out a thermometer, and we'll get ready to take your temperature after a little bit. And then tell me if you had any diarrhea or constipation.
Well, that's what it felt like earlier. That's what I thought I had.
Evidently you're not convinced of that now.
I've never felt quite like this before.
If you push your left lower part of your abdomen with your hand, does it make it hurt worse?
Not really. Not like a sharp pain or anything.
Does it hurt to pee?
No, not really.
Have you vomited?
Yeah.
You feel that way?
I feel like I might be getting to that stage.
Have you had any problems with that kind of thing before, Charles?
No, I've never felt this before.
Okay, I'll tell you what, while we kind of think about what we're going to do here, why don't you have your folks on board there see if they can roust out that thermometer, then call me back here in 5 minutes or so and tell me what your temperature is. If you haven't got a thermometer, let me know that too.
Kevin, this is Doug Seaver on 4 Cross. We'll get a thermometer, we'll take his temperature, and we'll come back and chat with you on 72. Is that good? Over?
Yeah, that would work fine. We'll go to 16 and just call us when you're ready to switch to 72. It'd be nice to go look at his abdomen, though. You know, conditions aren't that bad.
Let's do it. Let's find out where they are.
Yeah. I'll start heading in that direction. Why don't we speed up a little bit, then we'll start closing in on them? 4 across Atlantic, that's right. Tell you what, probably the best thing for us to do is just look at them here while the weather's still pretty decent. Can you guys just make a 180-degree turn and head straight back, reverse your heading, head straight back towards us? We'll find you real quick now we have the radar, and I'll just come over there and take a look at them.
Very good. We'll turn around and come straight back. Thank you.
Go back to
4 Cross going back to 16.
Well, Jake, it looks like we have to pretty
With this decision having been made, they consider what other options they have if there's a critical situation developing. Turning back would probably take at least 2.5 days. There are no helicopters in Bermuda, and if there were, they wouldn't have the range needed to reach them until they were half a day from the island. Launching the dinghy was easy, but visiting the patient was a little more difficult. The bag is on board. Now watch the doctor go the extra step.
That's looking pretty gnarly.
He made it. Our cameraman almost didn't. Dr. Ware, Kevin to everyone else on board, has diagnosed Charles with a kidney stone. He diagrams the problem and explains that Charles was dehydrated. So the prescription was drink lots of water and urinate through coffee filters and look for a tiny crystal about the size of a grain of coffee and hope he finds it. On board 4 Across, the day started perfectly as we hear cameraman David Schuler interview Dr. Kevin Ware.
So Kevin, how's your patient doing as of last night?
fully recovered.
Fully recovered?
Heading half of the 72.
Yeah. And something like that, does that go away, or is that a recurrence? Or?
Really free.
Ideally, it should go away and stay away if the fleet until the same circumstances occur again.
Do you want to write down the lat long for you?
Level of dehydration, that kind of thing. So we'll just kind of keep our fingers crossed between here and the Azores and see what happens.
Later that day, the slow fleet arrived at their waypoint and made their turn with just under 1,250 miles to the dock at Horta. As you can see, they were having a wonderful ride, and the weather was just as Walt had predicted. The second fleet, under Kirk's direction, decided to take a direct course to the Azores, figuring the weather would become favorable by the end of the first 24 hours. Jim has decided to take advantage of this good weather and transfer 100 gallons of fuel to Uno Mas, just in case. You never know what could and will happen in the middle of the ocean. As you can see, this is a team effort. Maybe not exactly the way the Navy does it, but with added fuel, Uno Mas can increase her speed with no worries about making it to the next fuel stop.
This is perfect, Jim.
Fueling through a garden hose is a slow process, so the boys go water skiing, sharing the ocean with the neighborhood porpoise. Sea Fox comes to see what's going on and says it doesn't compare to air refueling. They had no sooner finished the fuel transfer than Scott Strickland stopped by to show them John Ailey's Wahoo.
That is a big son of a gun. Look at the size there. What's wrong with us? Where can they get them? That big fish. Good grief.
Good job.
Here's the whole fleet. We've gathered fairly close together to celebrate this. 3 p.m. We're all going to sound our horns, and some of us are going swimming.
In the Mid-Atlantic and the NAR swim rally.
This is looking a little like an invasion. In the middle of all this, probably a very puzzled captain of a tanker. I'm sure he's wondering what the heck is going on.
And what Ellen doesn't realize, this is an empty dock ship that up until now was the only way boats like hers could cross the Atlantic. Crosser has announced that she will host the halfway party for the fast fleet.
July 5th, Saturday. It's time for a picnic.
This Jose, he's swimming over to Crosser.
Holy cow.
Woo, thank you.
That was more than I thought. No, it is always fighting. It looks like it's right there.
Will you deliver, Jose?
Party time on the Crosser.
The weather has been all in their favor, and things may be going so well that tedium has set in for some of the participants. They're tired of reading, tired of playing games, and they probably told the same stories to the same people for the umpteenth time. On Crosser, the guests came up with some very creative entertainment for the fleet.
Here's a little rap from Crosser to the fleet. We'll try to do our best, though we got no beat. Mid-Atlantic wrap-up to have a little fun, swimming in the ocean and drink a little rum. Attacked by some sushi and boarded by the three. Kalita swam the hardest, on that we all agree. Colleen was taking photos to document the fun, to give to Bruce and Joan to show us in the sun. Get down. Matt came over, the swimmer by far, Justina and Jose, Anita at the bar. The conversation flowed, laughing did abound. They all maneuvered very close to take her homeward bound. Everyone was back aboard, we all got on our way. We're chilling, we're grooving, and that's all we gotta say.
There you go.
As the next few days rolled by, everything remained status quo. Then Jim received word from Walt Hack that the sleigh ride would end as they approached the Azores. He has the unpleasant task of reading the weather to the fleet. The front moved in on schedule, and with it came the problems you would much rather deal with in flat seas. But somehow it never seems to work out that way. On board Satchmo, Ellen Bain is already making her wish list.
Tomorrow, hopefully, we get into the Azores. This is just to give you a little idea of what it's like to rock and roll out on the Atlantic Ocean. And I was just thinking about some of the things that I'm really looking forward to there. One of them is walking in a straight line without having to hold on to anything. I'm looking forward to wearing a skirt instead of shorts or jeans. I'm looking forward to parties, being able to talk to other people. I love my husband, we have a great crew, but I am really starved for seeing some other people. I'm looking forward to sitting myself down at a bar and having a good time and not worrying about when my next watch is.
Uno Mas, the smallest boat in the fleet, only 40 feet long, had lost her stabilizers. She had turned 180 degrees and was headed in the opposite direction of the fleet for a more comfortable ride while they tried to solve the problem.
Uno Mas, Atlantic Escort's heading your way. Why don't you hold that position just for a second? I want to talk to you. Have you checked both the circuit breakers, the little circuit breaker on the generator and then the bigger circuit breaker in the gray box next to the generator?
Jim knew that John and Sue Spencer could have continued on course, enduring a very uncomfortable ride, but there was a good chance they could correct the problem and have a much easier last day at sea.
Sounds like someone's gonna get on the boat.
Just think about launching a boat this year.
Let's do it. I can do it. I'm just gonna put my wetsuit on so in case
you can jump on that thing and instantly fix it, right?
What about just swimming over? I know that sounds crazy, but
I can swim over. That's
less
easier.
dangerous.
Well,
But Justin knows more what he's doing.
Swimming's actually easier if you have your wetsuit on.
Swimming is the backup to when the dinghy flips.
I'd freaking swim it. I
would
swear
rather
it's
swim,
easier.
too.
I'd rather swim. I'll swim with them, Dad.
Swallow them
And swim back. I'll swim with you.
Then you're going to be in the water. We're going to have to keep moving. If we stop this boat, this shit is going to be Armageddon.
The 62-foot escort vessel Autumn Wind is closest and has turned around and headed back to be with Uno Mas. As Uno Mas headed toward Bermuda, the fleet listened as they talked to Atlantic Escort on the VHF.
You should test voltage on the output of that gray box.
It goes to the big gray box first?
This is that little reset switch on the generator.
Yeah, the little one.
And then it goes to the...
Now, if you have air conditioning, is there a second box like that on the outside of the generator? Or does it just all go through that one?
I believe just the one, yeah.
Then it goes from there directly to the panel.
Exactly.
And
Then it jumps over
the
to
shore
the...
power coming in has two of those boxes.
Exactly.
They're independent of that.
Exactly. So if you, instead of going back to the Lazarette, have them just put a meter on right after that gray box. You know what I mean? That'd be the same as testing the 3 wires going into the inverter.
But he is getting power somehow through his main panel. So it seems like maybe if you just pull all the wires off the inverter and just get rid of whatever shit Kevin's put in there and just wire them direct, the ins and the outs. But you know, this thing Kevin gets in there and mucks around. We don't know what he's done.
Yeah, we should go get on board.
It was fortunate that Jim had the foresight to transfer fuel to Uno Mas in good conditions, so she'd have no fuel shortage once they got her fixed and pointed in the right direction.
The inverter turned on. Well, you know, if you're smelling burning, I think that the inverter should not really be fiddled with. We gotta bypass it. Was there any evidence in the Lazarette that the inverter got wet?
The outside of it is wet.
The original plan, if we've got a bad inverter and we need to bypass it, have you identified the in wires and the out wires, and can you remove them from the inverter and hook them together?
At this point, Jim knew his fleet could make it into Horta with plenty of reserve fuel, so he told them not to be concerned with what was going on behind them and make the best speed to Horta. The fast fleet was closing rapidly and given the same orders.
Yeah, roger that. Well, we believe your inverter is ruined, and all we want to do is get your AC through the damn inverter to your panel so you can continue on. And the only sure way to do that is to bypass the inverter.
After Jim had questioned John extensively about what had happened, Jim had been able to determine the problem was in the 12-volt to 120-volt inverter that powered the cooling pump for the stabilizers. It had gotten wet, and John's description was that it smelled like burnt rubber. Jim knew when he heard that report that the inverter was toast.
So you found the 3 wires that came out of the inverter output. There was the inverter input, inverter output. Total of 6 wires. You found the ones that said inverter output, right?
Correcting the problem would be relatively easy for a skilled technician. All he'd have to do would be to disconnect the correct wires from the inverter, bypass a few more things like the main electrical panel, and connect directly to the diesel generator that puts out 120 volts. And he also has to do it while lying upside down in a very rolly sea. Piece of cake.
This side, yeah.
The tough part would be getting the technician onto their boat. It's too rough to safely launch the small tender in the cockpit, and even if they could, it would probably flip over in these wind and sea conditions. The only other option was for the technician to swim to Uno Mas. Jim was not overjoyed at the thought of putting this young man or anyone else in this turbulent ocean.
Where? Yeah.
Justin Zumwalt was just the technician they needed, and he wanted to take a swim. As far as Justin was concerned, he was the man for the job.
Hey!
Anytime he's ready, he can go. And then okay, he's off, so go ahead and turn to starboard.
1 hour later, Justin dives off the stern of Uno Mas, swimming toward Atlantic Escort like he was trying to catch a wave.
Yeah, with his bypass on over to the starboard side of the boat.
As he arrived at the stern and grabbed the rope James had tossed him, he yelled,
Save me, James, save me!
When asked to describe what took place, his answer was, nothing special, just moved some wires around.
This is Satchmo. We're 180 miles out of Porta, and we're dealing with some engine problems at the same time. The weather is getting to be fun, so we're expecting that we'll be able to make it with the current situation. But we've been putting together our contingency plans, and they are what all the folks in the Nordhavn rally would have, which is if the engine begins to stop, we'll try to resuscitate it with flipping around some of the fuel lines. And if that doesn't work, we go to our backup Yanmar. And if that doesn't work, then we call for a helicopter. We put out our parachute. So we're pretty comfortable that we aren't going to have any problem. But if we do, that's the plan.
Jim has been called back to the wheelhouse. Bill Bain on Satchmo has just told him that both his main engine and his take-home engine have quit, and he's dead in the water.
Okay, now you absolutely have good filters in both of those Raycor filters, right?
Yeah, the one on the left will.
Jim resolves the airlock problem, and Satchmo is up and running in no time. Now here's Ellen Bain's version.
Apparently, the main engine, the lugger, stopped. Unbelievably, I slept through this. I can't believe, you would think that would have you bolt upright in bed. I slept through that, apparently, but I woke up to the sound of the wing engine. That's a very different sound. And I guess what really got my attention was the wing engine. You think wing engine, that means no main engine. Then I heard the wing engine die. And I heard the boat must have turned sideways to the waves, and so rocking back and forth, and I heard dishes crashing around in the cabinets. And Bill, Calvin, and Steve, our crew, running around, everybody yelling, going, where's the 3/8-inch wrench and the, tools, some swearing going on. And I thought, unless they come haul me out of this bed, I am pretending this is not happening. I pulled the covers up over my head, put the pillow on top of my head, and the bed, like the rest of the boat, was just side to side. I thought, my job is to stay in this bed. And that's exactly what I did. A lot of muttering, and in due course, I think it was quite a while, the blissful sound of that lugger starting again, the main engine starting again, and off we went. And I was very happy and extremely happy I didn't have to get up in the middle of all this.
It was not a nice morning for Atlantic Escort's last day at sea. Jim had been called back to the wheelhouse shortly before dawn when Autumn Wind had called to report that the propeller was tangled with something undetermined and they had shut down their main engine. They were running at about 4 knots using the take-home auxiliary engine. Jim asked them not to put anybody under the boat in this weather, and told him that he was already headed in their direction and should be there within 2 hours.
You want that main out?
We're still doing a dry run here. Sorry.
Having assessed the situation and with the weather moderating, Jim had decided to let his son James take a serrated knife and dive under the autumn wind to cut loose whatever had fouled their propeller. He also sends Justin for backup.
More on the shot, and then it gets thick around the prow. It's weird, 'cause it's right where the first line cutter fits.
What James found was a large tangle of polypropylene commercial fishing gear. He was able to make good cuts with his serrated knife, then asked Bill to put the engine in reverse. Most of the tangled gear fell free, and Autumn Wind was able to proceed at her normal cruising speed. Monte de Gaia on the island of Fayal is the prominent headland that is a welcome sight for our NAR mariners. Many of them have been at sea for 12 days. This beautiful Portuguese island has long been a favorite stopover for cruisers crossing the Atlantic, and the NAR rally members will be no exception.
Oh, doesn't it feel good?
John and Sue Spencer of Uno Mas have displayed an amazing can-do attitude on this crossing and get a special welcome from the rest of the group.
John, we mixed a drink for a guy that's been out to sea for 12 days.
Oh, thank you.
The harbor with its new marina looked quite different to Jim, who had been here 9 years ago with Jim and Susie Sink on board Salvation II, their 46-foot Nordhavn. The Sinks were the first to have circumnavigated the world in a production powerboat. A tired but relieved captain knows his fleet is safely at the dock and Autumn Wind is close behind. Everyone's confidence is way up, having completed the most challenging leg, and Jim is pleased to see their smiling faces. And here comes Autumn Wind. The fleet will be here 10 days, giving them plenty of time for repairs, maintenance, sightseeing, and cruising the other islands if they can't stand being tied to the dock that long. Generally, boaters are respectful of their surroundings. They like to leave things as they found them. But here in Horta, there's a legend that if you don't paint a remembrance of your boat on the concrete quay when you depart, your trip will have many problems. You can be sure the NAR rally will want to be remembered. This is Blue, your basic dock dog. No one owns her, and we're told if someone takes her home with them, she'll immediately return to the dock. So we were forewarned that she was not to become an NAR crew member.
It's your basic dog.
If the dock you're tied to is strong enough to hold this tank truck, the driver is happy to make several deliveries to empty his 5,000-gallon tank into the waiting NAR fleet. The quality of the fuel is one of the primary concerns in keeping these engines running. Scott Flanders tests fuel out of Egret's tank as a matter of routine caution when fueling in unfamiliar or foreign ports, and has found some particles of dirt. Next comes the discussion of where this dirt came from, Scott's tanks or the fuel truck.
But the other thing is, I didn't do this because it's harder to get to where the fill comes in. This is the forward vent, and I can go underneath the settee, underneath the salon table and do it. It's probably more definitive.
Seems like if everybody turned their transfer filters on with like 2-micron filters and ran them all night long, and if we didn't clog filters, it's probably going to be okay.
These boats all have a separate fuel cleaning system called a fuel polisher that can be operated with the engine not running. As a precaution, any concerned captain would polish his fuel before departure. Life on the dock.
It's like 2 people working, 2 drinking, and 2 filming. It's a perfect recipe. As they say, boating is working on your boat in exotic places.
If you didn't go to Peter's when you were in Horta, you were obviously not involved in boating. This Portuguese pub is known throughout the cruising world. If you were looking for NAR members, you could always find some relaxing and sharing sea stories here. The potluck party was fun, but not as much fun as the potluck awards, hosted by crew member Tom Selman of Sea Fox.
Well, we have two broken things on Uno Mas. According to John, it was a flooded inverter, and according to Sue, it's John.
The Welcome to Horta party was held at Club Naval at the Marina, not only introducing the rally members to the local music and dance, but integrating them with the friendly and the hospitable Azorians. These beautiful plaques were awarded to the NAR participants at a party given by the Department of Tourism for promoting cruising to the Azores. You could call this a farewell party to the Azores and Horta, but nobody wanted to leave this lovely island with its wonderful people, and we're already talking about returning.
Ladies and gentlemen, wow!
By now, Milt Baker was known as Sir Milt because of his ability to make everything happen as advertised and deal with any and every problem. With a promising weather report, Jim's spirits are way up as the light at the end of the tunnel burns brighter and brighter. The captain's and crew's confidence level is so high that you would think they were going for a day cruise, not a 7-day cruise. Jim had hoped the boats would take advantage of the time they had here to visit the other islands. It's Thursday, the 17th of June, and most of the fast fleet is leaving for Ponta Delgada on San Miguel Island, 150 miles southeast. Sea Fox is staying and going with the next group on Saturday, and Emeritus is leaving on Sunday. This is the start of the last leg. The next time we see them is when the fleets merge as they approach Gibraltar. They have excellent conditions for the 18-hour trip to Ponta Delgada, the largest and most industrialized city in the Azores. The final captain's briefing is underway. Relating back to his Navy days, Milt cautions the captains about being overconfident as they make their final approach to Gibraltar.
Basically, haul up your Q flag a few miles out.
When you can see the entrance buoy of the final channel, almost everyone has a tendency to let their guard down.
Our routing is going to take us right along the southern side of San Miguel Island, right near that Punta Delgado. So it would be a good backup plan that if the weather forecast deteriorates on us within the first 24 hours of our departure, or if we have any kind of mechanical problems, I would propose that we would go in there and sort them out.
Wouldn't you know it, the first boat off the dock is Uno Mas, with those two tough Texans, John and Sue Spencer, leading the way with their 40-foot Nordhavn. Atlantic Escort is a brand new 57 Nordhavn. After the rally, it's being taken to Southampton, England from Gibraltar to be the first boat to grace the new Nordhavn offices there. But Jim's main concern is to deliver both fleets safely to Gibraltar. The fleets have been blessed with good weather as they start their last 1,150-mile leg to complete a 4,000-mile journey. Ellen Bain on Satchmo is starting her watch and is still excited about the whole adventure.
I'm panning here through the various instruments in our pilot house. Incredible, huh? Look at all this stuff. I can't say that I know precisely how to work all of them, but 90% of them I'm very comfortable with. That's coming from somebody who 2 years ago couldn't fix the clock on the VCR so it didn't go blinka, blinka, blinka. And now here I am. I'm on the bridge alone, watch, and I'm responsible for all these things. And I'm doing a decent job, I think.
The kids would be very happy to know that Steve never misses his bottle toss at noon every day. Some of those kids will be young adults when their bottles are found, and it will bring back the memory of this first group of powerboats to make their way across the Atlantic Ocean. Did you hear about the 45-pound Dorado that Satchmo caught?
But beautiful, look at it. And here comes Atlantic Escort to document this most unusual event, somebody catching a fish. Oh, hey. My goodness.
You want to keep him, yes or no?
Yes.
All right.
And here's some
nice pineapple rum.
Quick.
Hey, remember it said to spit in his mouth and throw a towel over his eyes.
Okay, this is barbaric.
You want to eat him? I can't even read it on the scale hardly.
Oh, it's probably 5 pounds, guys.
25 pounds!
There you go.
St. John M. O'Neill Dunn, or St. John to his friends, is the guest conductor of the orchestra you're listening to aboard Autumn Wind. He's also one of the 2 emergency medical technicians signed on to the rally, and he likes to steer. You're always excited to see another yacht when crossing an ocean, and normally you hail them on channel 16 on the VHF radio. In this case, the sailboat Anna's response was unusual. Not exactly the customary way to acknowledge a passing vessel, but Kay Linda was ready for the challenge. Using the sextant to determine latitude and longitude used to be the way mariners navigated across oceans. With the advent of electronic navigation devices, few still maintain the skills necessary to use the sextant. Barry Smith, one of Envoy's very capable crew, is one of the few who hasn't lost his touch. But it's sure nice to be able to look at your GPS and know you're within 10 feet instead of 10 miles. Aboard Gray Pearl in the Master Fleet, they call this fishing from the second story.
Here! On the downy! Come to downy! Stop running! Try and get him up close to the head.
Nice work.
Through the guts.
Good eating. It will be.
Put that lasagna away.
This is great service. They catch, clean, and even deliver.
Here he comes on the starboard side of the boat. Easier for us to hand off.
Oops. They'll have to get their boat hook back in Gibraltar. Just listen to number 1, the most popular radio show in the North Atlantic.
Good morning, NAR fleet, and especially you feisty 46ers. You are tuned to 25 watts of clear channel VHF radio, originating in our studios aboard the motor vessel Envoy. We interrupt our usual broadcast schedule for a special musical dedication this morning. And due to this special dedication, Brad Smith's Hour of Psychic Healing program will be held in its entirety on Channel 2 immediately following roll call. You won't want to miss this stirring rebroadcast of an earlier show that Jerry Springer once described as setting a new standard in broadcast quality.
Trivia question.
Okay, here we go.
This is what happens when your confidence level is high, your anxiety is gone, and you're anxious to get there.
Vice President Cheney has what kind of pet?
George W. Bush.
I heard that, George W.
When they weren't entertaining the others on the radio, this is how they entertained themselves.
The David Letterman top 10, maybe 9, who knows. Best uses of Eggo waffles. They make great beer coasters.
Cheers.
Nice polish work there.
Fashionable, yet edible.
This is how we sail on board the MV Stargazer crossing the Atlantic. As you can see, there's nobody actually at the controls. The autopilot is doing the sailing.
Stargazer's crew were more productive in how they used their watch standing time.
Well, just how fabulous it is to be able to cruise across the Atlantic while making crafts.
When you've read everything you can find on your boat, it's always good to have a friend close by with an additional supply of entertainment to keep you going. This delivery service may lack a little in sophistication, but it certainly accomplishes the task at hand. This is Gray Pearl's version of the ER. With a very slow leak at the seal on their steering ram in the lazarette, they're able to recover what they lose and re-enter it back into the system. You'd think this group would be in too much of a hurry to get to Gibraltar, but they just can't pass up this beautiful flat ocean.
Oh, God.
In the middle of the ocean, just swimming, and we're playing balloon games. Oh, you're turning me on, big guy.
Atlantic Escort hears about the swimming party behind them in the faster fleet, and not to be outdone, introduces tube riding to the NAR water sports agenda, doing it with Scott Strickland on Strictly for Fun. This is the final barbecue of the trip. With the beautiful flat ocean, the fleet is gathered together and there are no problems that haven't been taken care of. Jim couldn't have asked for a better way to spend the last evening before arriving in Gibraltar. He should be smiling.
Last night, only 80 miles out of Gibraltar. The wind's going to shift around tonight. The morning blow real hard out of the east. I'm a little bit worried.
Neptunus Rex must have been listening to Jim, so he cranked up the wind a few notches, thinking he'd strike some fear into the hearts of our stalwart crew.
Yeah. It's fun or what? Are you having fun yet? I'm going to pick up my attaboy award now.
Sorry, Nep, didn't work. He let the wind blow till the boats passed their first landfall of the final leg, Tarifa, the centuries-old Spanish town which before Columbus was considered to be the end of the earth. Going west beyond Tarifa meant you'd fall over the edge. Our brave little fleet and its dauntless seafarers will soon be achieving the goal they had worked so hard for.
You know, it's a big relief to get it all done. You kind of come up with this idea and promote it a little bit and get some support, and then you get yourself committed, and then you start thinking, was this really the right thing to do, and exposing all these boats to the, the risk that we did. But now that it's done, it's fantastic. There was a lot of dread just prior to each of the 3 departures from Lauderdale, Bermuda, and the Azores. Kind of the adrenaline kind of pumps up in your chest, and you think, man, what if something happens? But we had a few things happen, and we were able to deal with them. But generally, it was a very, very routine trip, and I couldn't be more pleased with the accomplishment of getting all 18 boats across with essentially no problems of any significance.
The 2004 Nordhavn Atlantic Rally fleet was greeted by the Rock, the ancient headland that has been the gateway to the Mediterranean Sea for many millennia and has seen civilizations come and go since before recorded time. But has it ever seen anything like this? Absolutely not. Maybe it will again someday. Maybe it won't. But it's a sight that will never be forgotten.